when people with different abilities are looking for careers, they tend to turn towards government sector, right? Because that provides certain stability, a certain security. Do you
Hmm.
think that's still the case, Ajbi?
So I'll say it's really the people with disabilities have great ambitions and great desires to do things. They have determination to do things. It's more than people with disabilities. Society around us thinks that we should be aiming for government jobs or we should be aiming for low hanging fruits. People with disabilities are still open to do more, bigger, and better. Sometimes, of course, there are individual specific circumstances, could be economic limitations, could be other limitations, lack of support, lack of proper guidance, which may impact an individual's ability to do what they wanted to achieve in life. But in general, people with disabilities have good ambitions and desires to do things.
This month on Beyond Limit Stories, we welcome Amar Jain, a lawyer and accessibility advocate and the founder of Mission Accessibility. He brings both expertise and lived experience to advancing access to justice and digital inclusion, and is a recipient of the Sarojini Trilok Nath National Award for Best Role Model. His journey is a powerful reminder that true inclusion begins with equal access and opportunity.
मेरा सवाल ये था पहले आपने बोला था you said when people with different abilities are looking for careers, they tend to turn towards government sector, right? Because that provides certain stability, a certain security. Do you
Hmm.
think that's still the case, Ajbi?
So I'll say it's really the people with disabilities have great ambitions and great, desires to do things. They have determination to do things. It's more than people with disabilities. Society around us thinks that we should be aiming for government jobs or we should be aiming for low hanging fruits. People with disabilities are still open to do more, bigger, and better. Sometimes, of course, there are individual specific circumstances, could be economic limitations, could be other limitations, lack of support, lack of proper guidance, which may impact an individual's ability to do, what they wanted to achieve in life. But in general, people with disabilities have good ambitions and desires to do things. And slowly that has kind of led people with disabilities to achieve greater heights in their career and in their life. But society around us at large still, needs to change that, because the gap between the population of people with disabilities and the population of people without disabilities is huge. So that awareness still needs to be created.
So um how do you think that barrier can be closed? That perception gap can be closed.
I think one is the leadership visibility. So you often see people with disabilities at the entry level jobs or in the mediocre level jobs. You may see people with disabilities in midline jobs such as managers, etc. But you don't see people with disabilities in leadership roles, whether it is a boardroom conversation, whether it is, key leadership positions within regulatory authorities or government authorities, whether it is decision making powers. You don't see people with disabilities
Agreed.
there. I think the more people with disabilities are seen and are being visible across across the spectrum, slowly the perception is going to change. And
Yes.
another angle to this would be the more we start to design with inclusive mindset
Mm.
and with universal design principles in mind, that also is going to lead to the change in mindset of people.
So, let's a quick question about your personal journey. You started in Rajasthan,
Yes,
schooling in Bombay. Now you're in Delhi. Tell me a little bit about that transition. How
sure.
easy was it? How hard was it? I assume you moved for job or for, reasons for job, right?
So when I was in Jodhpur, Rajasthan, I studied till my class 12th or plus two, as we call it.
Uh-huh.
And then I wanted to do law from a good college, and I got selected in Mumbai. I also got another national law university in Gandhinagar. But for me, Mumbai was good because I had thought of going into corporate sector, and I had my mind was towards that aim. So I chose Mumbai. My parents moved with me to Mumbai from Rajasthan to make me educated. And then after working for 7.5 years in Mumbai, I thought I want to start something of my own, and I needed to expand my horizons. So Delhi, for that reason, became most logical choice because you had the government, you had the
Mhm.
courts, both Supreme Court, High Court, and you had the at least some of the corporate offices based in Delhi, Gurgaon, etc. So because of that reason, I moved to Delhi with my family again.
So, from what I'm hearing, there was a large support from your family,
Yes.
in education, moving with you. So, can you tell me a little bit about that support? Meaning, tell me a little bit about your journey. So your journey, obviously you're very idealistic. You have high dreams, but had you not had that support from your family, maybe your friends, I don't know what else was your support system. Just can you tell me like how much of your journey can be or should be attributed to that support?
No, certainly. The fact that I had a support from the family enabled me to counter many barriers that I encountered during my journey, whether it is societal perceptions, whether it is access to material, whether it is grooming, whether it is becoming a kind of professional that I should be. A huge credit goes to my family, huge credit goes to my parents, who kind of stood by me, who took every decision keeping my best interest in mind, were bold enough to leave their city and to move along with me. So definitely, my dad used to edit and scan the books for me so that I could read it on my own. He used to take me to college using long commutes because the distance in Mumbai is quite huge. So it has been a great support. My mom used to make sure that everything at the back end is taken care. So it has been a great support.
Yeah, and now you talk about societal perceptions. I understand, your family or if you have any close friends, how um they can keep you confident, right? If you have a lag somewhere. But how about when you went to college?
Mhm.
How were you perceived by friends, by professors? Was
So initial first year was more of a sympathy and kind of that kind of attitude that okay, I may not be able to perform at par with others because the people who got into that college were high rankers and I'm a person with disability. So first semester everybody kind of was very nice to me because they thought okay, we may help him to passed the education, but I achieved 18th rank in my first semester, and that's when everybody who was initially supporting me started looking at me as their competitor.
competition? Yeah.
So that kind of reflected a change in the thought process. Eventually, I did make great friends on along the lines. But yeah, I mean, initially from somebody who would not be able to perform or who would have very low performance. So we should help him to looking at somebody as a competitor with a disability, I think was a huge challenge and huge turnaround in the entire situation.
So I know in government schools and colleges in India, there's a certain percentage of seats allocated to people with different abilities.
Yep.
When you went to college, did you see this, or was the percentage far less in law school?
No, there were definitely certain people with disabilities who got reservation through that route as well. I was able to qualify based on my rank.
Okay. But there were people with different abilities in the law school that took place
In
in
my batch, as far as visual impairment is concerned, I had only one other person who was with me who was a low vision. I'm
okay,
totally blind and he was a low vision.
I see. Okay. And Amar, can I ask you how long has it been since you started your own practice?
I started my own practice in 2024.
Okay. And what do you specialize in?
Again, corporate laws and civil laws, except criminal laws, everything really.
So why did you choose these particular channels of law?
Well, because over a period of time, I did work. As I said, my journey initially was in corporate law. So corporate law was very close to my heart, and civil law again comes very close to my heart because of the problems that I see in day to day in society, whether it is family issues, whether it is property law issues, things like that. So I thought this would be the area where I would. So there are two things. One, of course, your ability to practice a particular area and earn from that area, and the other part of your practice is what gives you satisfaction. So these areas I think kept me satisfied as well as were good enough for me to make my ends meet.
So can you give us some examples of some cases that you've been involved in or that are closer to your heart?
Sure, there have been many cases. There have been couple of students who were denied due to disability in medical science. So we pursued those cases and got them success. There have been cases where we have fought for allowing people with disabilities to give exams on computer independently, as opposed to scribe in prestigious exams of India, whether it is UPSC, whether it is NET, National Eligibility Teachers Test. um, then there have been a few commercial matters. There was a company which was under liquidation or winding up. We took that case. That has progressed well. Then there is arbitration matter which is undergoing for somebody which is a MSME, which is a medium and small and medium enterprise, micro, small and medium enterprise. That had suffered huge losses because there was a fraud on the other side. So we have taken up that as a case, which is now it's in final legs. So there have been good kind of successes along the way.
Mm. So, can you tell me what's your perception and how close you are to the RPWD Act?
RPWD Act is a good law. It's based on the rights framework. The enforcement mechanism in the law is requires like more strengthening, including powers to monitor non-compliance, including powers to impose or recover penalties. Those things still require a bit of a tighter hand, I would say. But as a law, it's a good law. It's based on rights. It's based on UNCRPD, which is United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. From that perspective, the law has been well drafted.
So, I've spoken to many people
Hmm.
um, about their perception of this act, and the major consensus, like you said, is that it is a good law, but the implementation of it is lacking quite a bit.
Yes.
So, how do you think the implementation can be helped?
So, one, of course, the easiest route, when I say easiest, not in terms of getting it done, but in terms of the best outcome, would be to amend the law itself to give more powers to the implementing agencies, whether it is Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities, whether it is State Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities, whether it is, kind of coordination between ministries and departments, whether it is the role of Department for Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities. That needs to be expanded. Budgetary allocations need to be better. Resource utilization and monitoring needs to happen much more appropriately. So that's one way. The other way I would think is to make sure that there is on-ground implementation, is to keep advocating for things that are not getting implemented properly. Consistent, effort in that regard by the community, by the people who are affected, is very important. That would also give us, good strength to make sure that the law is properly implemented.
So, I want to ask you a specific question about your practice.
Hmm.
So, as you know, there's a lot of perception, right, with people with different abilities perceived as being needy, right? So there's a lot of sympathy and pity thrown our way.
Hmm.
Now, and you've seen that firsthand going through school and whatnot. Now that you are at the other end and in the position of helping others, what is your position when it comes to people with different abilities? Like you said, the medical students who were denied admission. What's your stance to helping those who can't afford your fees?
So, that's a very valid question, because legal aid for people with disabilities, competent lawyers who are able to help people with disabilities, is still missing in the system. So we do take three matters a month on a pro bono basis, subject to certain parameters. So that's one of our ways of helping people from different backgrounds, to make sure that legal aid is not denied to anybody. The other thing that we do is that on a weekly basis for 1 hour, we run a free legal helpline for people with and without disabilities, to offer them any legal advice that they may have on a given issue. It's called Justice Connect. That's another way to make sure that people with and without disabilities have access to one-stop shop for legal services, or basic legal guidance when they need, without cost being too much of a barrier for them. Plus, we are always on a lookout for institutional funding, which can help us take up more pro bono cases for people with disabilities who are not able to otherwise afford a typical market fees.
So, I'm sorry, you said it was Justice Connect, right? Just
Yes, one is Justice Connect, which is a weekly legal helpline for 1 hour every Thursday, 5:30 to 6:30 evening India Standard Time, where we help people answer legal queries, whether with disabilities or without disabilities. And we also take up three cases per month on a pro bono basis,
oh,
subject to certain parameters.
that's very nice. So, Justice Connect is an initiative by your practice, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in your practice, is it solely you or do you have partners as well?
Now, I have one more partner who's also blind. His name is Rahul Bajaj.
Okay.
And we have employees among, or kind of junior colleagues with us practicing.
So, like we discussed, there are gaps in accessibility and inclusion. And you said yourself that when you were in school or even now, you don't use Braille to the extent that maybe you should or you could. So,
Hmm.
what do you think is the importance of Braille? And if we don't use Braille, do you think there's a better solution?
Um, Plus point of Braille is that it is available to you on your fingertips. You don't need to carry extra gadgets. You don't need to carry technology. You don't need to rely on multiple things happening at the background. But the problem with Braille is that it's too voluminous. The methods to convert things into Braille are still not very good. Braille itself needs revision in terms of formatting information being able to be conveyed, in terms of tabular structures to be able to convey. Those problems are still there as far as Indian Braille is concerned. There is UAB also, but again, Braille needs its own refinements. Technology definitely is a very good solution. If you're good with technology, you can solve many of these challenges by using simply a common laptop that is being used by everybody, and a screen reading software.
So, what do you think are some steps organizations can take to make their services more accessible?
Organizations, I think professionalism in the organizations really need to be strengthened. within disability run organizations, professionalism is one thing which I feel the management should be governed by professionals so that it's a proper service delivery. It's not done with a charity mindset, it's done with a proper service delivery mindset so that things are delivered on time, things are delivered with requisite quality, and it's done in a timely and punctual fashion.
Mhm. What, like, so towards inclusion, right? If you look at society right now,
Hmm.
there's a lot of talk about diversity and inclusion, but I want to know from your perspective, from a lawyer's perspective, inclusion, what gaps do you still see and how, if we can, how can we bridge those gaps?
One of the most often perceived gaps at large from an inclusion perspective is lack of awareness and attitudinal insensitivity.
Mhm.
Sometimes people don't want to be aware, sometimes it's ignorance, sometimes it's simply lack of awareness. So having more and more people in the mainstream with disabilities, interacting with others without disabilities, kind of can bridge the gap. Second is the narrative of people with disabilities. Often, people with disabilities are either portrayed as heroic, inspirational figures, or as somebody who needs sympathy or who needs charity. I think giving a true picture of their life story or their practical challenges and their solutions would help turn the dialogue into more of a understanding conversation. So that's equally important. So narrative and attitude, I think, for people with disabilities. And third, I would say that when all of these is done, then ensuring that whatever gets designed, whether it is a product or a service or an environment, is also designed keeping people with disabilities in the mind, keeping their accessibility needs in mind, keeping universal design in mind, so that irrespective of the ability or the challenge, everybody is able to use what we have created as creators. I think these three things, if done, can have a huge impact on improving inclusion.
Now, you're very close to the justice system in India. You're on the justice system. And, I have seen the government in India. People with different beliefs are not really represented. I want to know what's your viewpoint on having representation in the government or in the legal bodies or, um, equal representation and making policies. What's your viewpoint on that?
So certainly, I would say that over a course of time, things have improved. You have Supreme Court delivering landmark judgment where they said that people with disabilities and specifically people with blindness should be allowed to become judges as well. And there has been a very recently first woman judge of our country who's person with blindness in Kerala. So things are improving. But yes, more and more legal professionals with disabilities need to come into the sector. More and more judges need to come into the sector who have a disability. But for that to happen, we need to create infrastructure so that many people with disabilities who need access to assistive technology or access to accessibility measures. For example, a deaf and hard of hearing would need speech sign language interpreter. A person with blindness would need screen reader. Making sure that those tools are made available, those facilities are made available, and ensuring that the basic challenges that people with disabilities face in using courtroom environment as litigation lawyers, if those can be sorted out, I think there is a huge scope that we are going to see people with disabilities coming in to the profession more often.
Mhm. Okay. And I want to know for our viewers and our listeners and our audience today, what message do you have for inclusion? I I think your Justice Connect is a great initiative that I definitely will be making available that people know about because I think that's a good service. So what is there anything you want to share with the audience about your work or about how they can conduct themselves to make the world more inclusive?
I think mindfulness is very important. Being mindful, inclusion is not a rocket science, to be honest. Uh, People with
Mhm.
disabilities are no different, just that their ways of doing things could be slightly different than you. So, being mindful, being thoughtful about how things can be achieved, same results can be achieved with slight different way of approaching those, could make a huge difference in the life of people with disabilities and without disabilities. Taking everybody along and treating people with disabilities as part of the same system, because we also have same social obligations, same personal obligations, same professional obligations as anybody else. Keeping that in mind, if we conduct ourselves as individuals, I think it's going to make a huge difference.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your time and knowledge with us today, Amar.
Thank you,
Um,
Amma.
we hope to see you and collaborate with you soon.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.